So Tony Khan did not make himself look good, and by extension, AEW look good today, when he responded to I guess you could say promotion, the talk that Jinder Mahal next Monday night on Raw will begin a World Heavyweight Championship match against Seth Rollins. Now he responded by basically saying, that a lot of people were complaining and criticizing the fact that Hook, who is Taz's son and is the current FTW champion in AEW, called out Samoa Joe, challenged Samoa Joe to a world title match, which got accepted. And apparently will take place tomorrow night at Dynamite Homecoming at Daily's Place. Now, he basically went online and ranted about the fact that nobody is raging about Jinder getting a world title match. And, after almost a year without a win, except for maybe one or two. Well, basically, USA Network then responded by saying to him, oh, what was the cage match rating? Because apparently Tony Khan uses cagematch.net to figure out what matches people want to see, what kind of, dream matches, people they want to have focused on, stuff like that, instead of listening to those, like, let's say, the fans or those that are actually in his company, for some input as to where he should go next with his product. And in response, Tony Khan said this. And I was watching Alex's World's take on it. I was watching Alex here in his take on it. This is what Tony Khan had to say in response to USA, replying, what was the cage match rating? This is what he said, and I quote, a moral victory for USA is one win more than the world title challenger Jinder Mahal has had in the past 364 days, because it's been literally a full year since he won a match. You really put AEW in our place, getting Jinder Mahal in a big match on your TV show. Do it more often. Now, if that's not enough, Jinder Mahal then later on chimed in, in response to Tony Khan, and said, and basically asked the question, who the fuck, is Jinder, who the fuck is Hook? Basically, who the fuck, is Hook? And then he promoted Watch Monday Night Raw on USA at 8 p.m. Eastern Pacific. So he was asking the question to Tony Khan, who the fuck is Hook? Because obviously he doesn't know about him, and neither does anybody else. Well, then Eric Bischoff chimed in and said, he didn't say nothing, but he chimed in with a clown emoji. And people kind of called him out, like Alex 6, called him out by saying, hey, you're one to speak because, Eric Bischoff used to do something similar in the past with WCW Monday Nitro. Basically, when Nitro began, up till about the late 90s, Eric Bischoff himself, and then later on Tony Schiavone, I should say, Eric Bischoff himself, at the start of Nitro, when it began, to later on when Bischoff was in the NWO, he would then have Tony Schiavone. They would basically give away the taped results of taped Monday Night Raws, so that way nobody would tune over or change over to USA, and they would stick with Nitro. Well, one time they basically did something that pretty much changed the trajectory, I should say. They changed the trajectory of the Monday Night Raws in WWE's favor when, of course, Eric Bischoff had Tony Schiavone give away the results of Mankind becoming WWE champion, on Monday Night Raw, on the taped edition of Raw, which caused a lot of people to switch over to Raw to see that happen. Because Mankind, Mick Foley, used to be Cactus Jack in WCW, so it caused them to switch over to see this happen. And things were never the same again. But anyway, then you had the coach chime in and say, something, basically saying, something along the lines of, it's about the story and not just the wins and losses. And that if, he was there and Vince McMahon decided, hey, I want you to be champion, he probably would have been, but it needed to fit the story, and it didn't. And that never happened. That was just an example he was giving. And of course, people like Alex responded by saying, yeah, the story does matter, but so does the wins and losses along with it. So here's the situation here. Why would Tony Khan respond to this? Why would he even go out of his way and respond to this? Well, quite simply, I think it's because of the fact that he's upset that nobody is, nobody on social media, no fans are complaining about the fact that Jinder Mahal is getting a world title match when he's practically not had a serious win in over a year. Now, here's the thing. Jinder Mahal has been pushed somewhat as being part of this little faction with Jinder Mahal, who we haven't seen in a while, but we can assume it's still there. So, and we can assume we'll probably try to play a factor in the world title match next week. But basically, sorry about that. That was my device back there. But anyway, basically people, Tony Khan is, like I said, Tony Khan, sorry, I got distracted with that. I do apologize. But Tony Khan basically, is saying, that nobody's complaining about that, but yet they decide to complain about Hook going up against Samoa Joe. Well, here's the thing, though. What Tony Khan is not, figuring out, and people like Alex, and I'm sure JD and Andrew Bandela, as we're speaking, which right now they're doing the live Tuesday Night Titans as we speak. I'm sure they'll say something similar. Nobody believes Jinder Mahal is going to beat Seth Rollins. Just like they don't believe Hook is going to beat Samoa Joe. But the difference, though, is there's more believability between the two. That's my opinion. In my opinion, I think the reason people are, criticizing Hook getting a title match against Samoa Joe isn't because of the fact that, it's not a believable, on the outset, it doesn't look like a, believable matchup. It looks more like, Joe's going to, feast on Hook, and that's going to be it. Hook's going to be a sacrificial lamb in Joe's first title defense. So nobody believes Hook stands a chance. With Jinder and Seth, they believe, even though they know Jinder will not win, they still believe it's still more believable that he could pull out the victory. The other thing, too, that makes it enticing for folks to tune in and watch that is the unpredictability of whether or not we'll get a cash-in by Damian Priest. Something that, Tony Khan could have utilized later with Killswitch, a.k.a. Luchasaurus, waiting to cash in his TNT title match, whenever he wanted, instead of basically wasting it by giving it to Christian Cage at World's End. That's what they're looking at. They're looking at the believability. Even though they know, Seth Rollins will walk out with the title, doesn't mean basically, it won't be too believable. It doesn't mean basically, it doesn't, feel like it won't be too believable that, let's say, Jinder Mahal could beat him. Because Jinder Mahal, whether you like the guy or not, is a decent wrestler. And he's got the look that makes you believe he could basically beat a less than 100% Seth Rollins. He does have that look. And I think that's another reason why people are complaining. Because Hook and Samoa Joe, like I said, doesn't feel like, it's believable. It doesn't feel like when you look at Hook, yeah, he has an impressive record of 28-1, but it doesn't mean, but on paper and from a point of view, it doesn't feel like it'd be believable that he beat Samoa Joe. It feels like more like Samoa Joe would eat him for lunch, period. And I think that's why people would rage about it. The other reason they rage about it too is because Hook hasn't been primarily featured on their version of Monday Night Raw Dynamite, on their A show, their flagship show Dynamite, and instead has been featured more on Rampage and Collision, shows that people don't really watch that much unless it's on demand or DVR'd. And that's it. So nobody's going to believe someone like Hook winning the world title from someone like Joe, especially since the last time they saw him on a major platform was at a 0-hour event before World's End, was on a 0-hour program before World's End. So in the long run, in closing, everybody is going to have a right to their opinion, whether they like something or they don't. But it doesn't mean you should just come out and say, hey, what about this? What about that? You should be more accepting of the fact that, hey, at least people have a right to their opinions. You should have, you should be appreciative of people having right to their opinions. And if people are telling you, hey, Joe and Hook don't make sense, and believably it doesn't look, good on paper, you should take that in consideration. You should take that in consideration. And the other thing is, you should not use your platform to unintentionally promote your competition, because you're angry. Because all that does is make you look bad, and by extension makes AEW look bad, and makes WBD reconsider either keeping you or not. That's something to look into as well. But basically that's where we are right now, with Tony Khan being upset the way he was. But let me know what your thoughts are on all this. Comment down below, live chat during the premiere, like the video, and until next time, guys, I'll talk to y'all later.